said, "You have no right to be doing this. You're undermining your own cause. Why does a civil rights leader think he knows anything about war?" And what Dr. King told us is that there is a triplet of evil, of racism and materialism and militarism, and that we can't fight one without fighting them all. That they are linked the way our movements have to be linked. That unity and solidarity. When Dr. King talked about how the arc of what is it, the arc of justice? No, the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. The arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. The corollary to that is, yeah, but it doesn't do it by itself. It does it because we fight for justice. You know the old bumper sticker, if you want peace, fight for justice. On a global scale, we're doing the opposite. We're creating war by causing injustice. So I'll leave you, because I want to open it up for comments and questions and discussion, with just a reminder of something that I think many of you are very familiar with. How many of you have read Howard Zinn's fabulous book, People's History of the United States? Many of you, most of you. And it's a wonderful book, the stories of the real people who made this country. They are crucial, and they are crucial to understanding what our country is. But Howard left us with something else. The theme of his book, this notion of understanding that we can have two ideas in our heads at one time. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. So on the one hand, our country is grounded in the legacy of genocide and slavery. This country became rich on the blood of Native people that were slaughtered, the Onondaga and others, and on the blood of Africans who were enslaved when they were brought here in chains. But our country is another country also. From that very moment of its origins, we were also the country of movements against slavery, movements against genocide, movements for women's rights, against racism, against Jim Crow, for voting rights, for civil rights, for LGBT rights, for women's rights, to protect the environment, all of these movements, and the movement against wars. These are all in the core, in the fabric of our country. And we have to remember them both all the time. We have a lot of work to do. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Phyllis. Phyllis will be right back up for some question and answer session. But first, myself and Brian, my name is Ursula. I'm on the steering committee of the Syracuse Peace Council. And Brian is on staff at the Syracuse Peace Council, as many of you may know. We want to just share with you some local next steps that we can take to put into motion this growing resistance against not just all the attacks on the programs that we care about at home, all the attacks on climate justice, but how we can also at the same time be rebuilding our local movement to oppose U.S. wars and also to oppose the increase in the military budget. First off, I want to say thank you to everyone that was generously donating on your way in. Please, on your way out, if you did not get a chance, please do so we can continue to bring great speakers to town and so that we can continue to support places like All Saints that support our movements. So please, on your way out, be sure to contribute what you can. And then also, oh, yes, a hand for All Saints. And a lot of you, when you came in, you saw on your seats a little card that says, "Take Action." And what this is, it's a pledge card for how, in the coming weeks, you are willing to take action to say no to the $54 billion increase to the military budget. On May 12th, around the country, we are mobilizing for a day of action to oppose the increase to the military budget. There's going to be rallies and call-ins to members of Congress around the country, and it's really up to us to bring that message to Syracuse. So we're going to be rallying on the Salina Street side entrance of John Casco's office on Friday, May 12th at 4 at the end of the day. Come when you can. And we're going to be saying no to $54 billion more for war, and we are particularly going to be lifting up all the things that we hold so dear that are being attacked right now. We're going to be saying we need to invest in our communities, we need to invest in our schools, we need to invest in a transition to renewable energy, and these are all the things that we're seeing sacrificed as we're seeing the increase in the military budget. So what I'm asking you to do is to look at the pledge card and to think about what you're willing to do, to help us reignite our movement to not just stand up to the Trump agenda, but to stand up to the agenda of U.S. militarism. And so on your way out, we have, for example, we have petitions that you can take to your church, your place of worship. You can take them to work. You can take them wherever you go. I don't know where you go. We're going to be making banners. We're going to be phone banking. Basically, just think about what you can do every week to help us, as a community, say we will not stand for this increasing militarism in our name. So who didn't get one of these cards? On your seat, if you came in late, Michaela, who's right here, will pass them out in the back. Yeah, raise your hand if you didn't get a card. Yeah, great, you'll get one. And please also take one of these yellow sheets on your way out so that you can remember that on May 12th, we're rallying outside of Catco's office. And please help us spread the event on Facebook, forward information to all your listservs via email. It's going to take all of us to build a movement that can fight for the kind of world we want. So yeah, I hope to see you at the Peace Council office and in the street on May 12th. I turn it over to Brian.
Hello. So many of you may know that May 1st is International Workers' Day, and there is expected to be a very large, historically large strike on May 1st nationwide, and it's being led by it was actually initiated by food chain workers, everyone from pickers to sales clerks, and all the way, and everyone in the middle of the food supply chain. And locally, it was called for by the Workers' Center of Central New York, and the Peace Council has signed on, the ISO has signed on. There's a breakout group from the CMI Solidarity Coalition that's been working on it. And we would like to see that strike grow. And what this means is, one, we are encouraging people to strike, which is a scary thing, and many people are not accustomed to that in a long time. We want to also educate people about what they can do if they choose to strike. For a one-day strike to protect their rights, to protect themselves from retaliation. If that's the case for you, if you're interested in striking and sending a signal to the new administration, to the Congress, to the corporations who are pushing, for instance, immigrant detention centers, or as I like to call them, immigrant prisons, and to all the weapon makers who want us to be afraid of people overseas, afraid of people who are coming here, because that just fattens their pockets. If we want to send that message, one of the most powerful ways historically of resisting, a way that doesn't rely on the cooperation of our opponents, is to strike. And so a one-day strike is a show of force, a show of power. So if you are interested in striking, you can get in touch with me or get in touch with the Workers' Center of Central New York. You can find a flyer on either of the tables with some information on some steps you can take and who you can contact to get advice for your own protection. If you are interested in other ways of participating, there is a strike fund, and you can also see me about how to contribute towards that. There will be, if there is retaliation against any of the strikers locally, we will have a response team, which will then pick it outside of any employers who retaliate within the next day or two after the strike, to send a message that people, the workers' rights you cannot retaliate. Workers have a right to organize. You can't be retaliating against people for doing that. And then thirdly, on May 1st, there will be a march downtown at noon, starting at Perseverance Park next to Chase Bank on Salina. And the march will visit and have speakers at many key locations that really bring together so many of the different causes that are interconnected, everywhere from the state building, where we have state senators who have not supported sanctuary legislation, to City Hall, where you could say the same thing for city councilors, and for businesses on Armory Square that have been guilty of wage theft and taking advantage of their workers, to the Justice Center, where the county sheriff is still saying that he has to cooperate with ICE. So as Phyllis said, we need to, as an anti-war movement, we need to be fully and engaged in broader struggles in a way that is genuine and felt, and not opportunistic. So I think this is a great way to do that. Thank you. So now if Phyllis could come here. We'll have a question and answer time, and you can make a question or comment, but we're going to set a limit of about 2 minutes per question or comment. So please raise your hand if you have any. Karen?
Thank you for coming. I wanted to ask, how can we deal with classism in the movement? Yes, among racism, sexism, and ableism.
Thank you, Karen. Did people hear the question? The question was, how can we deal with racism, sexism, classism, and ableism in our movements? Very important question. I don't think there's one way. I think that all of us grow up in a society that is infected with all of those isms. Privilege occurs in this society in many different forms. The most blatant form, the most clear privilege, I would say, is the privilege of whiteness. White people are privileged in profound ways. But as we know, there are issues of privilege that go around gender, around issues of disability, around issues of a whole host of other things, and certainly around class. I think it's a question of doing what you just did, which is raising the issue all the time, to remind us all that the fact that we are activists fighting for justice doesn't mean that we somehow grew up magically in a society not filled with racism and sexism and ableism and classism, but we grew up in that society and absorbed all those things. So it means it's a constant struggle, and we have to be good to each other in reminding each other when we slip and when we rely on privilege to do something or ask for something or whatever. And we also have to be willing to acknowledge with each other that saying something that is racist doesn't make you a bad person. It means you grew up in a racist society and you have not yet finished, as none of us have, dealing with our own racism. So it means being willing to call each other out in a comradely way and make it part of what it means to be a political activist. That we don't simply bring our privilege to our political work and say, stopping the war is too important to worry about sexism now. You know, saving the environment is too important to worry about disability rights. None of that is true. We need everybody to fight against war and for the environment and all those things, and we can't afford to leave anyone behind. So if we build a movement that privileges white able-bodied men who are rich, we're going to be leaving a lot of people behind who are not going to be fighting for the climate or for justice in the streets or for against Islamophobia or to end wars. So it's a very pragmatic reality. We have to fight against all those things so we can build a stronger, better movement. Thank you.
Should we pass back the microphone?
One of the things I think we need to remember, and it's not just the military spending and where the money's coming from, it's a whole broad range of programs that are being attacked, not just by Trump, but especially Paul Ryan. And I'm thinking in particular healthcare. If any of Ryan's stuff goes through, what are we looking at? 20-some million people will have their healthcare taken away from them. The costs are going to rise because of the way it was originally funded, won't be there anymore. And that's a very critical issue, especially to those people in the lower economic classes. And we need to look out for them.
Is there a way to withhold the taxes you pay, a proportion of that goes to the military?
Very good question, and we didn't plant it. The question of tax resistance. Is there a way to withhold the proportion of your taxes that goes to the military? Absolutely. Is it legal to do so? No. But that doesn't mean that many people have not engaged in tax resistance. It's an important, non-violent part of our history. We know that 54 cents of every discretionary dollar, that doesn't mean every dollar, it's about half of that, but it's of every discretionary dollar, meaning the money available to Congress to allocate, goes to the military. One could imagine, I certainly would not propose this because it's not legal, but one could imagine lots of people withholding 54% of their taxes and saying, I'm going to donate that money to a nonprofit peace organization, just for instance, because I think that's a better use of that money. Now that makes you vulnerable to being prosecuted for insufficient taxes. People have historically gone to prison for that, paid fines, ultimately paid the taxes. People respond to that in different ways. But it is an important tactic to keep in mind.
I'll just add, about 2 weeks ago, we had someone from the National War Tax Resistance Council committee come, and we had a co-sponsoring with them. And actually, almost very few people who participated in war tax resistance have ever actually gone to jail. Usually, they may get some, they have to pay it eventually, but with some fees. Hassan.
Hello everyone. I have a question in common. Okay, I think everybody can hear me.
No, use the mic. Use the mic.
Okay. Well, I have a comment or maybe questions. We're here to talk about a budget for the Congress to prevent, the budget for the city to go over, the military thing. Some of the folks in the Syracuse had a problem with the Congress not holding town hall. And we were right now talking whether he can protect the city budget. And I just don't know how it's that going to work. He's not even holding a town hall meeting for the people to talk about it. So that's just a comment. But the question is, do you think if the people in the city have a problem about the Congress not holding town hall, do you think he's gonna do anything about the budget, about the overseas?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I don't know the specifics of the congressional delegation here, so I can't speak directly to that, but I think we're seeing on a national level, in the local areas, incredible mobilizations based on city councils and mayors, state assemblies and governors, as more of a direct focus for our work than the federal government. And that means that a lot of the local officials are also very worried. They're getting a lot more attention paid to what they're doing, because that's probably where some of our victories are going to happen. The issues around sanctuary, the issues around protecting vulnerable communities, these happen at the local area. So fighting for changing the laws about what our police do on the streets, those sorts of things, those campaigns are taking off all over the country. One of the things that happens is when local resolutions get passed, say in a city council, or a mayor's proclamation around sanctuary, or demanding that the $54 billion not be sent abroad for war, but be kept at home for healthcare and jobs and education and infrastructure, etc. That starts to have an impact on the local congressional delegation. They hear that. So that is an important part. We're also hearing right now this whole question about town hall meetings is a big issue nationally. A lot of members of Congress are either refusing to hold town meetings, or they're starting them and then they're literally running out the door to avoid the questions of outraged citizens, saying, you know, how are you not doing X, whatever the focus is. That needs to continue. People are doing sit-ins in the offices of their members. You know, these guys take a lot of vacations. They're not called vacations, they're called, you know, breaks in the schedule when they're home in their district. That's when you can reach them. But even when they're not, when they're in Washington, their office is still open, their staff is still there, their chief of staff is still here. They're talking to their staff 5, 6, 10 times a day. And when you have people sitting in the office saying, we're not leaving till we get to present our petitions, till we get to talk to the chief of staff, till we find out the rationale for Congressmember blah blah doing X, they hear about it. So all those things need to continue.
Well, I guess I just want to comment, go back to appreciating what Phyllis said, sort of toward the end of your talk about the need for us to reconceptualize how we work together. That for a long time we have operated from thinking that, you know, we have an important movement, whatever that particular movement is, and that we just want other people to come and be part of it, and if only they did, everything would be good. So the fact that we need to change our way of thinking to recognize that really we have to step out and join other struggles and recognize that that's what we're doing that on purpose. The other piece though is the piece about privilege and how that affects our capacity to do that. And I guess